Alright guys, welcome back to SC Native Outdoors. We are still continuing with our saddle hunting for the newbie series. So the first couple of videos we've talked about what a hunting saddle is. We've talked about different types of ropes and what they're used for. We've also talked about how to set the saddle up so you can prepare yourself to get into a tree. And then that's where we're at on this portion of the video. We're going to talk about how to put the saddle on and how to use the ropes when you're on the tree. Now, if you are one of the newbie saddle hunters, to me it doesn't matter if you're new to hunting in general, or if you're just new to saddle hunting as a different or as another means of a different way to hunt, as opposed to a hang-on stand, a ladder stand, or a fixed box stand or something like that. It really doesn't make a difference. This series is basically on this saddle itself. All right, so let's start off, and we're going to keep things simple. We're not going to talk about different climbing methods or anything like that. We're going to assume that you have your climbing method already figured out. If you ever hunted before, more than likely you've used some type of a carry-in, hang-on stand and a series of ladder sticks, okay? So that's what we're going to do. We're going to say that you have the 3 hang-on sticks, okay? And that's what you're going to use to ascend the tree. So whether or not you choose to put your saddle on at the tree when you get to where you want to hunt, or if you choose to wear it in. First things first, let's start on different ways to put on the saddle. All right, there's 2 different ways that I've done it. And that's 2 ways you can do this. The first way is make sure that you have your bridge fully extended to where it's open in the full position. And you can simply lay the saddle on the ground, and you can come through and you can step through the bridge. And you can pull that up. Now what I like to do is, I like to have my saddle a little tight when I'm walking in. So that's exactly what I'll do. I'll tighten it up and come up right above to where your waistline is. If you're wearing a belt, for example, come up a little bit higher than where you have the belt, okay? So I'm gonna come up, put that up above my waistline, and I'm gonna clip the waist belt on the saddle. Then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna reach down, I'm gonna grab the leg straps, and I'm going to fasten the leg straps. Got the saddle on, and what you want to remember is it's a positioning harness, right? So the leg straps, you want to be a little loose. You don't really want to have them real tight, because if it's tight, it's going to cut off the circulation in your legs, which 1 is going to make your sit very uncomfortable, and 2, it can also potentially have health hazards. It can interrupt the flow of blood to your heart, which can cause problems. So we're going to leave those leg straps loose. All the leg straps really are to stop you from slipping completely out of the saddle if something were to happen. If you do slip out of the saddle will naturally, as you're in it, it'll creep up anyway. So you do have to, especially on a single panel saddle, you do have to kind of keep pulling it down a little bit if you move around a lot. So you're going to have a little bit of adjustment periodically as you sit when you're at hunting height, but you're never going to fall out of the saddle. Worst case scenario, if it slips up, your armpits are going to catch anyway. It's going to catch the waist strap. So you're not going to come completely out of the saddle. It might give you that oh crap moment, and you may slip down 3 feet or so, but that's it. As long as you're tethered into the tree, you're stuck on that tree. So leg straps, use them, but leave them loose, okay? Then if I'm walking in and I plan on wearing this when I walk in, first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull my bridge tight. I've got a little piece of paracord tied on here with a figure-8 loop tied in it. And all that's for is so I can bring it around, and on the side of my belt right here, I've got a clip. And all I'm going to do is just slide that in that, slide that little loop in that clip, and it just holds it here so I'm not dragging no rope and catching on branches and things like that. But the threat of noise is always there. Guys, I apologize that the wind is picked up. Hopefully through editing, I can kind of get rid of some of this wind noise. But back to what I was talking about. So you're at the tree, you set your first climbing stick, and you're ready to start to ascend the tree. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to reach into your saddlebag or your dump pouch or whatever you have, and you're going to want to take out your lineman's belt, providing you don't have it attached to your saddle. If you've got it attached to your saddle, great. All you have to do is get it loose to be used. Now, keep in mind when you're dealing with your lineman's belt, if you're using a Prusik hitch or if you're using some type of mechanical ascending device, you're going to want to be able to operate that with your dominant hand. I'm right-handed, so that portion is going to stay on the right side of my body. I'm going to take and clip in my carabiner on my left lineman's loop. One thing I forgot to mention, let me go ahead and rectify that now. When I was talking about ropes and carabiners and stuff, always try to use a carabiner with a locking screw gate, whether it be one that you turn yourself to lock or it's got an auto locking screw gate. It's just going to stop you from accidentally opening up that carabiner and it slipping off. All right, so what you want to do, you want to take your rope, you want to throw it around the tree, and then you're going to clip in to the opposite side of your saddle with the opposite lineman loop, okay? You're going to screw that gate closed on your carabiner. You're going to start pulling slack out of your rope. Now, the whole purpose of this lineman's rope is to do one thing, and it's to hold you in position so you can be hands-free. Now, obviously, I can't do that. It's too loose. So what I'll do is I'll stand at the base of the tree, I'll pull that belt up to where I want it, and I'll start taking out the slack. And I'll draw myself closer to the tree. The closer to the tree, the better you are as far as how this lineman belt's gonna, or the lineman's rope or belt, however you want to refer to it, is gonna work, okay? What's important is you don't have it down here where it's low. You want it up kind of high, because as you lean into it and put pressure, if you was to fall, it's going to slow your descent down the tree, or if you're close enough, it's going to allow you to where you can put your legs around the tree and actually stop yourself from sliding all the way down the tree. All right, so at this point, we're going to say I'm ready to make my first climb on the first stick that I've set up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of the slack out of that belt, and I'm going to give myself enough room to where I can freely move my foot to reach the top step, okay? Then if I was to start climbing, as I make that step, I'm flipping my rope up higher above me to make the second step. And constantly, as I'm climbing, I'm doing that flip motion and I'm working that belt up the higher that I go. By always keeping that lineman's rope up above where it's at, attached to the saddle itself on the lineman's loop. All right. Then once I'm in a position to where I'm at the top of my first stick and I'm ready to set my stick again, I will do the same thing. I will reach through and I will pull some of that slack out until I'm tight up against that tree. Once I'm tight up against that tree, I can now place my second step. And as you can see, I'm leaning back into this harness, and and I'm not going nowhere. I'm leaning back into the saddle, excuse me, not harness, but saddle. The lineman's belt is keeping me tight to this tree, and as long as I remain on the top step of my sticks, I can work comfortably, hands-free, and I can hang another stick. So you're gonna rinse and repeat. You're gonna hang your other stick. You're gonna give yourself just enough slack so that you can grab the tree and you can step up onto your first step again. And as you make that step, you're gonna pull that lineman's belt up with you. It's sometimes easier to lean back into it, so you're not keeping yourself parallel to where this stays loose but stays tight. And as you're taking that step, you can lean. As you made that step, you can lean forward, throw it up, lean back into it, and take your second step. Once you get to the point to where you're ready to set your other stick again, you can tighten yourself up to where you're tied up against the tree, as tight as you want. You can be married to the tree if you want. You know, if you want to be right up on the tree, you can do that, as long as you can work comfortably and you feel comfortable to set that stick. All right, so I'm leaning back into the saddle, I'm working comfortably. I've set my last stick, and I'm ready to get up to where I want to place my platform if you use a platform, or a ring of steps if you're using a ring of steps. Little advice that I can give you on that: don't climb all the way up to the top of your last stick and then try and set your platform or a ring of steps, because now you've got a lot of transitioning from the side a little bit, and it's going to make getting onto that platform a little bit more difficult. It can be done, but what I suggest is you stay on the bottom step of your stick and then pull yourself tight to the tree, and then just a couple of inches above where your stick is, set your platform off to either side that you prefer, or set your ring of steps and configure your steps. Okay, now once that's done and you climb up to the top of that stick and you climb up onto your platform, you're gonna pull your lineman's belt close again, and you're gonna keep that slack out to where you're in a good position and you can work comfortably. Your next step at that point is to get out your tether. So I've got my tether taken out. Now on mine, I use, like I said in the video on my ropes, I use a quick link. Well, all you're doing is creating a girth hitch around the tree. Whether you got an eye loop on your rope or a quick link, the end result's going to be the same. So you come and you place that around the tree. I'll place it through the quick link, and then I'll tighten up the gate on the quick link. Now what I'll do at this point is I try and keep my tether set at about head height initially when I'm trying to figure out what's comfortable for me in the saddle. But what's going to be important is where your rope hangs down through your eye or the quick link, you keep that dead center of the tree and dead center of your body. If you have it off to the left, it's going to pull you this direction. If you have it off to the right, it's going to pull you to the right. So you want to keep it dead center. Also, some key things to remember here is when you're placing that dead center, it's going to control where your body's positioned if you're on the top side or back side of the lean of the tree, which we'll get into more on that when we actually start the climbing series, because that's going to be important as well. But I'll start initially by setting the tether head height. That's the problem with the quick link. You see how that just fell? That is the reason for the Celtic button knot that I have. It stops the tether from falling without pressure, because when you don't have pressure loaded on the tether, you've got nothing that's stretching it tight against, pulling itself tight against itself. So what I do is I put that Celtic button knot right up there up against that quick link, and then I just pull it tight. So now I can hang my tether and this isn't going to fall down. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and I'll get my bridge out, and then I'll adjust my bridge initially. Initially, I like to start with right where your rib cage splits. that's initially where I start with my bridge. Then I will simply take my carabiner and I'll clip into the bridge, remembering to lock the screw gate on the carabiner, and then I'll just start pulling some of this slack out until I can feel that it puts pressure on the rope or on the bridge, okay? Then what I'll do at that point is I will slowly start to relieve pressure on my lineman's belt, and I'll set back into the saddle until I feel that I've got good pressure on this saddle. And then what I may opt to do at that point is just adjust this up a little bit higher on my hitch. And then I'll start relieving more pressure until I can feel the saddle come close to my butt and I'm in the seat. Once I'm in the seat, I can go ahead and I got no pressure on the lineman's belt now. I can go ahead and unclip from the lineman's belt. I got ants all over me. I hate ants. All right, so at that point, I'm up and I'm set up in my saddle. Okay, now I can kind of get comfortable with how the saddle works and I can reposition the saddle. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and totally unclip my lineman's belt and I'll put it away for now because I'm at hunting height and I'm not going to need it. So there's no need in me having it. So now I can put that away and I can stow that back in my bag. All right, now I don't like, this is where you can kind of get into adjusting the saddle, and because you can freely move it on your body, I don't like how tight it is. The saddle portion itself right back here, that is your seat. So I'll just pull it down, move it down a little bit. But what I don't like in this position is I feel like I'm too far away from the tree. Okay, if I had to reach anything, I'd have to kneel down. I don't like the fact that when I do kneel, my legs are not in a comfortable position for a sitting position. So this is where playing with your saddle, you know, gets to be little, you got to find the sweet spot for you, so to speak. So what I'll do is, if I'm on my platform, I will simply pull myself up to the tree, and I will initially start with adjusting my bridge. Now I don't use a mechanical ascender on my bridge either for one-handed operation. I just run the tag end of the rope through the lineman's belt loop on the right side of my body, and that will act as a hitch tender. So now I'll take a little bit of slack out of that and make that a little bit tighter. Now I feel like I'm in a good position. You know, I can twist in the saddle if I need to. I can walk my way around the base of the tree pretty good. I can come all the way over here to this side. I can walk myself around to this side of the tree, and I can use the tree as a blocker to obscure, you know, my movement from a lot on that side of the tree where the camera is. All right, now what you're going to want to understand is the key to being comfortable in the saddle and being able to sit for extended periods of time is where the saddle is positioned on your butt and on your legs. All right, so I don't like the way this feels either. So I know the tether is holding my weight. At this point, if you had to do what I'm about to do now, you could take your lineman's belt back up again, and you could wrap it on a tree and put it back in and get yourself to where you can go hands-free while this is loose. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen up my saddle just a little bit, to where I can sit back into that saddle a lot more comfortable, and then I'll just retighten it. I don't have my waist belt 100% tight because I want to be able to use full advantage, or take advantage and use full area on this seat that I have in the saddle. But what that's done is that's gave me, I'm a little bit more comfortable. I don't have no leg pinch or no hip pinch, but this angle right here is very important. But as you see, I'm leaned back further away from the tree than I want to be. So again, I'll lean into the tree, take pressure off the saddle, and I'll pull some slack out of that bridge yet again. And then I'll reposition the saddle down on my legs where I want it. Now that's pretty much ideally for me where I sit. The only thing that I would probably recommend, and this is something that I'm playing with right now, is to whether or not to incorporate a ring of steps in my system, because that's going to allow me to straddle the tree a little bit more, and that's going to allow me to get just that much more closer to the tree in a sitting position, which is going to be more comfortable. But as you can see, I mean, I'm fully weighting the saddle and I'm sitting in it. My legs are not touching the ground. I mean, I'm pretty much just hanging in the saddle. You know, it keeps you in a fixed position, but I can still move and rotate around the tree a little bit if I need to put the tree between me, and if the animals are walking in from a particular direction, I can put the tree between me and them at all times. At this point, what I would do is once I'm set up, I might want to play around with being a little bit more comfortable. So I would again try adjusting a few things. Now, depending on the height of your tether and where you actually have it, as far as the angle that you have, the higher the angle, or the higher the height of the tether, the steeper that angle, and it's going to pull more on the top portion. It's going to pull more on the bottom portion of the belt. So it's going to put a lot of pressure right here underneath your legs. I'll just give you an idea of what that would look like if I was to move this up, say above my head. A lot of times people will set that up as high as they can get, and there's nothing wrong with that. It just changes a few things. That's now put a lot of the pressure right here under my butt, and it's pulling up on my legs, and what it's doing is it's pulling this bridge really narrow, which is squeezing around my legs. So my legs are forced together. I don't have that room of being able to spread my legs a little bit. So that's, for me, that's very uncomfortable. So I'll reset this back down to head height again. And what I'll do is, instead of staying at the top of my head, I'll come down right about to where my chin is at. And I'll set my button knot to hold that in place. And then I'll move my hitch up. Then I'll set back into the saddle. Now what that's done is that's made the saddle really comfortable. I can spread my legs a little bit more. I can be a little bit more comfortable with that, but it's also pulling evenly on both the bottom of the saddle and on the top. You know, this back part right here. But if I want to get a little bit more room, I can lengthen the bridge a little bit. I can readjust the saddle. And I can set back down into it just kind of like you would on a swing. Now I can still reach my pack. Being further out from the tree means you're sticking out a lot farther, so you want to be able to make sure that you're using that as a good blocker if you choose to do that on a platform. If I had a ring of steps, I would be a little bit closer to the tree and I could set into it a little bit, and that'll put my profile closer to the tree. So since I'm a little bit too far out, I'll just readjust the saddle by using the bridge a little bit. I'll take it up about an inch and then reset the saddle and set back down into it again. Now that's almost to a point to where I'm very comfortable. I think I can get a little bit more adjustment out of this bridge. So I'll kneel down, I'll stand up, take some pressure off the saddle, and I'll pull that up about another inch to a half inch to an inch, and then I'll set back down in the saddle again. Now that puts me right back at where I felt more comfortable. If I had a set of knee pads, I can lean comfortably on the tree. Knee pads are invaluable in saddle hunting. I suggest that you look into definitely getting a set. Also, you know, so you can kneel. You can put your knees up against the tree and you can kneel, and you can take weight off of your feet. Because when you're in this leaning position, most of your body weight is supported by the saddle itself, but you still have probably about 10 to 20% of pressure on your feet. And you know, you can do the 1 foot shuffle. You can shift your weight to take pressure off of your feet if you want to do that. If you got a ring of steps, it makes it a little bit easier. Or if you've got an adjustable platform, it makes it a little bit easier because your feet are at that natural angle when you're leaning, instead of being pushed down forward to where you're stretching your feet and you're bending them down like you would if you're standing flat on the ground and leaning. You're able to stand more in a natural position. So, you know, kind of keep that in mind. That way, when you're playing with how to get this system to where you're able to be comfortable, then you can start doing other things to be even more comfortable. Don't be susceptible to the hype on saddle hunting. What works for me may not work for you, vice versa for everybody else. Find what works for you and roll with it. The main thing is just make sure you're using the equipment correctly so you're safe. You know, I've been sitting here for probably about maybe 15 minutes or so in this same position. Maybe not that long, but I can already feel a lot of weight on the bottom of the saddle where my legs are settling into it, and it's starting to make my legs hurt a little bit. So what I'll do at this point is I'll adjust this up a little bit. I'll adjust my tether to where it's where I want it, a little bit higher, right back to about my nose. I'll set that button knot again, and then I'll retension my saddle and I'll set down into it. That made that a lot more comfortable just that quick. Realistically, getting used to how to set this up and how to play with these angles, play with the adjustment of the bridge, is ultimately going to be where you find that sweet spot for you to be able to make it to where you can sit longer in the saddle. Now I'm back in that position that's normal for me. That makes it pretty comfortable. And that's basically it on how to use your lineman's belt as well as. But other than that, that's all this video was to show you how to hook up to a tree so you can start playing with all the angles of your tether, the length of your bridge. Start playing with those to find that sweet spot, you know, that really works for you. But for me, I like it right here where it is. I keep the lower portion of the saddle just below my butt. Keep the upper portion of the saddle just at the small of my back for a little bit of back support, and I can lean into the tree. I can come and set sideways on the tree if I got to change my position a little bit to take pressure off my legs and my feet. But for the most part, that's, like I said, that's pretty much on how a saddle works when you're in the saddle in the tree. One thing I will tell you, just a quick little tip. If you find that you set up and the tree is leaning kind of off to your left a little bit or off to your right, what you can do is you can set your tether to where it's a little bit off center, and that's going to naturally pull back in that direction, so it's going to help you fight gravity a little bit. So keep that in mind. I really think that's about it as far as using a lineman's belt and using a tether. So I think what we'll do is we'll focus on the next video is setting up a platform at ground level so you can feel what it's like to maneuver around that platform when you're in the tree, because it is a little bit different. It's not much different, but you don't have that safety of, safety feeling of knowing that you're on the ground itself. So keep that in mind when you're in your platform, and practice with it at ground level as well. That way you don't fall and hurt yourself. And then we'll focus on that in one video, and then I think we'll start getting into actually doing a climb. Okay, so I hope the information that I've given you so far in these video series are helping you to decide if saddle hunting is something you want to get involved with or not. I hope it's given you enough information to say, okay, it's not as intimidating as what I thought by just watching people do it on other videos. I hope I'm being as detailed as I physically can to kind of make this easy to understand, and in the demonstration in how it's used. I hope to see you on the next video. As always, drop your comments in the bottom. I'll be happy to go over any comments that you have, discuss anything you want. Hit that like and subscribe button, hit that share button. Let's get these videos circulating to some of these guys that, guys and gals that want to learn how to saddle hunt. And I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.